Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Practice Gratitude Success Show. And today I have a very special guest. I always say that, but today I have a friend of mine. Somebody's been a friend of mine for a long time, many years. And her name is Erin Matlock. She's the founder of Brain Summit. It's a mental health, and she's a mental health advocate, a speaker, and popular blogger. She also serves as an advisor and consultant to organizations and individuals in the mental health and brain health markets. Now, she just came off of a TED Talk, doing a talk over in England, and it's like so cool. Like it's so neat to actually speak to somebody who's actually given a TED Talk. Erin, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me. And
Oh my God! I know you probably have things that you want to say, but I want to ask you, how was that experience of giving a TED Talk, and were you nervous?
So nervous is putting it mildly. A TED Talk, and mine was TEDx, which for people who don't know is an independently organized talk or conference under the TED umbrella.
Okay.
I think a lot of us dream of that, of going and doing a TEDx talk and getting to share our story, but we also know the implications of what can happen to people from their TED Talk. We look at Brene Brown and people whose entire careers have been launched. And it's very nerve-wracking, very, very nerve-wracking. Something about it, I think it's the pressure you feel from everyone else. So when you get your TED Talk, Bob, what's going to happen is everyone's going to be, oh, TED. Oh my God, you might be on Oprah. They have all of these feelings that they're going to project on you. And so each day that you get better at dealing with the fear of it, you think, okay, today I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to flip out. Someone calls. Do you have a speaking coach? Do you have an acting coach? I only had 4 weeks to prep. And they're like, do you know you need several months to prep? That's not enough time. You have to stop your life. All of that builds up. And that's, yeah, right? So I had to stop talking to people. I told people, thank you so much for your advice and thanks for calling and everything, but you are freaking me out and I can't get this done. So I just need to do my own thing. I'm not going to have a speaking coach. I didn't have an acting coach, and I didn't memorize. So that's the thing with TED Talks is it's to memorize or to not memorize. I don't like memorization. What I suggest is your opening, your first couple of minutes, memorize. Because here's what's going to happen, you guys. You are going to have this down cold. You are going to practice so many times. 15 minutes before your talk, everything's gone. Everything is gone. And like you had mentioned, I speak on a lot of stages. I never forget what I'm going to say. But for your TED Talk, it will go out the window. You will have this nervous response. You will start to sweat. Your heart is going crazy. We had one of our speakers try to leave the event and not do his. Right. Yeah. So we were all, and these are all just really experienced speakers who were.
Oh my God.
So if you memorize the first couple of minutes, really cold, you go into it really nicely. And if you look at mine, it was a little bit of my story. So I didn't have to worry about talking about science or anything that I could get wrong until I kind of got the nerves out and got into my flow. And that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, you were great. I loved it.
Thank you. I was terrified, and there was a few things. So I think we all worry about, are we going to be enough? Are we smart enough? Are we qualified enough? I don't have fancy letters behind my name. I have a bachelor's in psychology. That's it. And the other thing was, when I was asked, which was 4 weeks before, you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, last year I put on a lot of weight. I had spiraled back into a bit of a depression. And for me, I am one of those people, I eat when I'm stressed. Some people can't eat when they're stressed, and I wish that was me. So I looked at the organizer, and we were at lunch, and he said, I'm having TED starting in about a month, and I really want you to speak. I want you to be the last speaker I had. And I said, nope. I said, I am not your girl. I don't look good. I'm not ready. That's not enough time for me to prepare. And everything was me. And he looked at me and he said, his name is Mark Wynn, and he said, it's not about you. And in that moment, everything really changed. He said, it's about them. He said, so get on a flight to Guernsey and get up and tell your story, because somebody in that audience needs to hear what you have to say. So that was a lesson for me as an adult, that it isn't about me. It's not about whether my hair looks okay or whether I'm the right weight. Anybody can look at that talk and see that there is extra padding on that girl. The thing was, is it's nothing about that. It was about connecting with that audience. And the beautiful thing is that he was right, because after that talk, there was a couple more talks and then there was a lunch break. There ended up being a line to speak to me, not because I'm awesome, but because these are people who had never felt understood before. They never felt like someone could say what they were feeling inside. They didn't feel okay to talk about suicide or talk about depression or anxiety, and they finally could. And it made me feel really good that I grew up and got out of my own ego and went over there and listened to Mark and made it about them and not about what I looked like or what I sounded like or if I was educated enough or successful enough.
Wow. That's powerful. That's really powerful.
Yeah, it just changed. And so I'm human and I'm a woman, and I catch myself, like we just talked about, I'm in ketosis, trying to knock off this weight. I catch myself saying, oh God, I'm not ready to get out. I'm not ready to do these videos. And then I always have to go back to Mark's advice. It's not about me. It really isn't. It is about the work, the mission. We are all put through things in life. You have been put through a lot in your life, and look what you're doing. You're out there helping people and connecting a community of like-minded people so that they feel understood, they feel included, because we all are connected, and we can't operate in these bubbles in isolation, and we have to feel and we have to share these experiences that we have.
Well, just tell us about what led up to it. Why did I ask you to be on a TED Talk?
So the interesting thing was, I used to, as you know, because you've known me for a long time, really stay behind the brand. And I built this brand called Brain Pages, and I used to do a lot of digital marketing work to make other people famous. Mm-hmm. So to make doctors and scientists and all these therapists really famous on the web. And about a year and a half ago, I really felt like I was not sharing my voice. I was not sharing my story. I was not talking about depression and suicide and anxiety and entrepreneurship and living with disability. And the only way to do that was to come out in front. And so coming out in front of your story and putting yourself out there, and it's not about becoming famous or getting all the glory. It is about being human and being able to connect, because we don't typically connect with brands. We connect with people. Mark, the organizer, Mark Wim, and I met 3 years ago at an event. Jim Quick, who is this brilliant brain trainer to the stars and this memory expert, invited us to this kind of Superhero You conference, which he has one coming up in June. This one was in Vegas, and we met briefly. And Mark was this free spirit. I was just like so run down by my business and all the work that I was doing, and I was not doing the work for me, so I was not fulfilled. And he was just light and airy, and I thought, who is this kook? What do you? And I said, what do you do for a living? Because I was just exhausted. And he was like, I push people to be who they're supposed to be. And I thought, that's a cool job. I don't know how he makes money at that, but and so we kind of talked, and then we fell out of contact, but we kept in touch on Facebook. You and I are Facebook friends. God bless Facebook. And he saw that last year I really came out on my blog, over at my personal blog, talking about spirituality and the intersection of a business based around science and medicine, and how I could no longer sanitize my spirituality from it, my connection to God. And I felt like there was a place for all of us to have our religious or spiritual beliefs or non-beliefs and still coexist. And in doing so, I have received so many opportunities from people who want to talk about that. And that's what brought him to me. He said, I want that authenticity. I want you to talk about neuroscience, but I want it to be infused with spirituality and connectedness. He didn't want it just from a PhD, a neuroscientist, because that's what I told him. I was like, why don't you get a neuroscientist to talk about this? No, he wanted the human experience. So for your listeners or the watchers, if you're ever feeling that, because I used to work with, I still do to an extent, doctors and venture capitalists, neurotech CEOs, neuroscientists, they all have the same fears that we do. They're not enough. And they have those fancy letters behind their names, and they still feel like they're not accomplished enough. They're not smart enough. What if they make a mistake? What if they get criticized? So we all have that, and we all have a right to get out there and share our story and be on stages if we want to be on stages.
I noticed that, Erin, with most of the people, like let's just do Facebook and stuff like that. I'll post things. I've been posting inspirational stuff like ever since I created a whole stroke support thing about 8 years ago. And at first it was just all strokes people who have had strokes. And I could understand the reason why they were where they were. But then as I branched out and started talking to people who didn't have that, but everybody has something. Everybody has something. Like you just said, everybody has, not everybody, but a lot of people, most people have that feeling that they're not enough. They feel like that. They're just like, I can't. I'm not that kind of person. So how do you overcome that? How do you tell other people to overcome that?
So it's about choosing the things that scare you. It is about saying yes. If we take a look at the opportunities that come at us at any period of time, we say no way more often than we say yes. So when Bob Miller comes and asks you to be on his show, the answer is yes. When you're asked to talk at a local event, or when you know you need to ask to talk at a local event, right? You pick up the phone and you say, hey, I have the story. I want to speak about such and such. I feel like I can help your group. I would love to come down and speak with your group. For me, it's about doing something scary all the time. My business, my work is never comfortable. I know if I'm comfortable for too long, I'm not moving forward. And so it's important that we scare ourselves. The other thing is, the more that we do this, it's almost like when you talked about working out. When we're working out, we're building our muscles. If we don't work out, we don't build those muscles.
Right.
So what do we have to do? We have to push ourselves into situations that are uncomfortable. Whether that's starting a web show, being on the web, starting a podcast, starting a blog, speaking just locally, writing our book, starting that process of putting our story down in paper. Or for some people, it might be just talking about what happened to them and their feelings with the people close to them for the first time. Because how many people do you know? I know a lot of people who suffer in silence, who don't talk about the innermost feelings and the emotions. Don't share that with the people close to them. Those are the things that start to push us forward. And the more little steps that we take that make us uncomfortable, we find that really wasn't that bad after all. Our brain makes us think we're going to die. That's what our brain does. It was meant to keep us safe when we were cavemen and cavewomen, right? Unfortunately, the brain is still working like we're cavemen and cavewomen. So it's got all these things that away from danger and fear of the unknown is something. So it gives us all of these reasons. A couple of books that I can easy to read. I read them every year. It's called Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and it talks about upper limit problems and how we unknowingly self-sabotage ourselves. It will open your eyes to why we hit certain limits in our life, whether they're financial, whether they're with love, relationships, work success, and we can't seem to go further. Very enlightening, easy read. The other is The War by Stephen Pressfield. And he talks about going after what you want in life, what you love, and how much, and holy cow, when you start going down your true path to what you're here on earth to do, the resistance that pops up is enough to just shut you down. And he talks about how the rational arguments of our resistance, our brain, because we're logical people. And they say, oh, you this book, you can't do this show, you can't get on stage, you can't talk to him, talk to her about this. And then we'll say, okay, you're right. And we stay in this place. The brain wants us to stay threat of danger. Out here are where our hopes are, where our true heart is. We have no idea what could happen. We could die. And our brain is designed to prevent us from dying, to keep us from dying. As long as we are always conscious of that, to know that our sweet, really beautiful brain is trying to work against us, we can then take a pause and say, all right, Mr. Brain, all right, Miss Brain, I realize you're trying to keep me in this place because this is safe. even though it doesn't feel safe. It may feel miserable. We know the extent of the pain and it's not death. But I'm going to go out here and I'm going to take this risk. The more you do that, the more that you build that muscle, the easier it gets.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like getting comfortable with getting out of your comfort zone, right? Getting comfortable with doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a flexing of that comfort zone muscle.
Because none of us really want to be uncomfortable when you think about it. Who wants to be uncomfortable? If you have a nice soft bed or you have a bed with glass on it, which one are you going to sleep on? You're going to sleep on the nice soft one. So I think a lot of the fear is like, why do I want to get out of a comfort if I'm in a comfort zone?
Mm-hmm. So I looked in the chat. For those of you, it seems like there's a little bit of stickiness. Sometimes Google Hangouts can do this. The book, the first one was The Big Leap. Len, you've read it. Yeah, it is a great book. So that is Gay Hendricks, right? No, Gay, right? Do I have the name right?
Yeah, Gay Hendricks, that's it.
Thank you. And then the second one, because apparently I jumped out, was The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Yep.
And I reread them every year, because here's the thing, you'll learn from them, right? And then by the next year, some of the old habits will creep up. So if we can reread those each year, it reminds us of how we prevent ourselves from having what we want out of life.
I think that's important to reread books, because I mean, there's so many books that I've read too. Like I've read both of those books that you just mentioned, but like you just said, to reread them and go through them again. We could probably just reread everything we already read and without reading anything else, and we'll be totally fine. Just reread the stuff we already have in our library someplace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is. It's just it's just a self-care for ourselves. Yes, I think they got it in chat. The War of Art and also The Big Leap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Len, for writing that out.
Yeah, I just reread a book. I just read by Bob Proctor. You Were Born Rich, and when I picked it up, I read a little note in there that I had sent to my son maybe 10, 15 years ago. I said, Mike, read this book and read it slowly. This is one of the best books you'll ever read. And the note was still inside of the book. So I don't know if he read it or not, but it was funny for me to pick it up and say, wow, I was so impressed by it 15 years ago that I sent it to him to tell him to read it slowly and read it often. So I'm glad that I refound it.
I love Bob Proctor, and that's another one with finances. If we can never get above our finances, and it's something that The Big Leap addresses, we have these ceilings. He calls them upper limit problems with money, and we will find a way to stay beneath that ceiling. And it was probably embedded in us almost always when we were children. So it's imprinted on us at how our parents handled money, what they felt about money, what they thought about money. So what levels of income do you feel are morally okay? And if you have a moral issue with higher levels of income, you're not going to achieve those higher levels of income, because your unconscious will find a way to self-sabotage you, to bring you back down, to keep you down here into a struggling place. Because someone who was very important to you in your life imprinted on you that that's how it is for good people. Everyone else is bad, or whatever issue it was with wealth. And it is amazing how we can unconsciously confirm those ideas of the people who were that important to us as youth. And it takes a lifetime to overcome that. It takes work to overcome that.
Just continuous, huh? Just keep working on it all the time.
Mm-hmm. You and I talked a little bit about Tony Robbins too before. We both really love Tony Robbins. He talks about that with weight loss. If you're a yo-yo dieter, we need to look at the issues of why can you lose? You're succeeding at losing to only gain it back. And then you lose again. So we know you're good at losing weight. And I'm one of those people throughout my life. I had a certain extent of yo-yo dieting. And he talks about the fact that there's a limit there. So you're self-sabotaging a certain level of success, a certain amount of intimacy with a partner, or the attraction of a partner. And there are many different things, reasons, and it all comes from self-worth. We're not worthy of XYZ. So we're going to build barriers. For some of us, it's weight. For some of us, it's addiction, shopping. Some of us, it's finances. Some of us, it's a combination of those things.
If you had to tell so I mean look at everything. Look at a whole circle. Take everything that's in a circle, like put it in four quarters. Your mental, emotional state, your physical, your relationships, your finances, and then in the middle have a circle called your spiritual. Which and if you wanted to tell somebody to improve in all of those areas, and you only had like 5 minutes, what's the best advice you would give somebody?
So I would tell them, this is the excellent, really excellent question. This is so important. There are three questions that I would say we need to sit down, get out some paper, and ask ourselves. And the first one is, what do I really want from my life? What do I want? Without feeling like anyone's ever going to read this or censor you. And we need to write it down on paper. You know, all of us come from that school where we're writing. There's something that happens in our brain when we write that down. And we need to feel it. We need to visualize it. What we really want from life, not what everybody else wants us to want. The second question is, why do you want this?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to understand why we need certain things, why we want to have certain things in our life. Without that why, we don't understand the purpose of the work it takes to get it. And the third question is, what am I willing to give up or let go of to have what I really want? It is always a matter of self-awareness and self-inquiry if we want to improve in happiness, in wealth, in health, in spirituality. It is always within, because every single one of us has a path. We have lessons that we were put here to learn. We have work that we were put here to do. And when we are children, everything is in front of us and we're on that path so perfectly and beautifully. Then we have adults in our life, and it's not always our parents. Sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's a boss, it's a wife, it's a husband, who puts that down, shames us, makes us feel stupid or like we aren't worth it. And then we believe it, we take it on. So as adults, when we reclaim that power and we ask those three questions, what do I really want? Why do I want it? And what am I willing to let go of, to give up in order to get that? All of a sudden, we return to direction. And you don't need to tell anyone about that exercise, because here's the thing. I don't ever go to my significant other right away when I have a new project I want or a new dream, because we want them to answer in a certain way. And that's not really fair, because they're answering from their experience, their perspective, their fears, their worries, their dreams, their lack of worth, so on. So we can't go to those people. We can go to safe people. If you have a best friend or a colleague, someone who gets you and is on it, someone who does a lot of self-improvement work, that's a great person to work with. Sometimes it's anonymous Facebook groups, right? Where you know you're with your people. You have a great following on Facebook of really positive people who are going after things in their life, who want to better their life. Then when we feel more secure about it and we've started to take steps, then it's time to start talking to those people who may not respond the way that we really need them to respond, because we're strong enough to understand that that's their stuff coming out. It has nothing to do with our choice.
Powerful. That's very powerful. That's extremely powerful. Do you do any coaching or anything like that, Erin? I think you did before.
Mm-hmm. I do coaching, and this is where I learned so much of this, because in the old business, it was all digital marketing advisement. And so I would take on these physicians and therapists and coaches and scientists, and we would start to work on the digital marketing. And what happened was we would always find out that their blocks in their success and their blocks in their life and their relationship were nothing to do with their marketing or their business structure, right? Those things can always be fixed and outsourced. It was all to do with what was in the head, what were the wounds that were not healed from childhood, where was the self-worth, and then how do we heal the heart so that we can go and achieve the things that we want.
And those are the things that you can help to pull out of people, to identify them.
Yeah, because if you think about it, how often do we get to sit and really take a few moments and write down, what do we want? Especially if you have people who are watching who are parents. Very little time for what they want or what they need, because everything is designed around the children. And then what's left, if the spouse is in the home, If there's two parents, then it's the spouse. Then at our age, it's about probably aging parents, if we're lucky enough to have our parents still alive. So when is there time for us? And I think that having a coach or going through a group program, whatever people choose to do, or even just reading The Big Leap and The War of Art will really help to say, okay, this half hour is mine. This 15 minutes is mine to figure out what I want and what I need. I've had 70, 80-year-olds come in to work with me, and I have 50-year-olds, and it's all the same thing. I can't believe I wasted so much time. I can't believe I didn't get this when I was younger. I'm 42. There are things I wish I would have gotten at 25. I didn't. You can't go back and fix it, right? And so the beautiful thing is we have the rest of our life. However long you and I get to live on this earth, we have it, and we get to create it the way that we want it. And it's yours for the taking. And that's what I learned. I don't have those fancy letters like we talked about at the beginning, and I'm getting to do all the things. And that is because we don't need fancy letters or fancy pedigrees to get out and really achieve our dreams. We're all human beings. We're all the same.
You could get them, you're young enough to do that if you wanted to, if you felt that was important. But obviously you don't feel that that's important for you to do that. And you don't need that. You don't need to have those fancy letters.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. If it was, I would definitely go back and get that PhD. I know some people do it much later in life. If that's a dream of yours, I certainly encourage you to do it. Just like if it's a dream of yours to run a marathon.
Right.
Go train for that marathon because that is what we need to do. We need to do the things that are pulling at us from within.
Yeah. There is so much more that I want to ask you about. Maybe we could schedule another time for you to come back, because you have just so much value to add, and I know we just haven't even scratched the surface yet.
I know we haven't, because I have all these notes of things I want to talk about, and so we'll have to come back and do them at another time.
Yeah, let's do that for sure, because I just knew, I wanted to ask so much about the TED. There's even so much more I want to know about that. What did you feel like when you first got up there? When you first stepped on the stage? How many people were there? First of all, how many people were?
There's 400, I think, in the audience.
That's a big crowd.
I mean, yeah, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die on that stage. And I never felt like that on stage. Right now. Yeah, I was terrified. That was the scariest thing I've done in my life. Yeah. And I think it will probably stay the scariest thing. The one thing I can tell anyone, if it is your dream to do any kind of talk and a TED Talk, know that you need to be getting out there, because the way these organizers hear about you is when you're blogging, you're on shows like Bob's, when you're putting yourself out there, when you're meeting your local organizers. Find out who they are in your area and offer to volunteer at your local TEDx event. This helps get you to have a relationship with the organizer, and that enables you to then talk about your story and what you have to share, and mention periodically that you speak, and then go out and practice speaking if you haven't before. And it's amazing. The relationships you build are the things that are going to help you get onto bigger stages. Whether it's a stage, it's a book, it's a podcast, it's a blog, TV, whatever, are all through relationships.
And I think for me, the biggest impact of what you said here today was the very beginning, when you said, it's not about you. It's really not about us. Get out of our ego and just think about how you're going to touch the life of somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's important, because we just talked about those three questions. What do I really want? What do I really want is finding the pull of your purpose. That it's in there. It was so bright when we were children, and then it got muddled down and pushed down. Thing is letting that come out, and then reminding ourselves we have a reason that we want these things, this mission in our life, and that is because that was our work. And at that point, that's how we help to say yes to things that we would normally be too scared to do, like the TED Talk. I said no. Was beautiful Mark Wynn, who said, it's not about you. Get over yourself and get out there, because people need to experience what you've experienced.
Awesome. This was just tremendous, Erin. Thank you so much for coming in. Yeah, please, we'll talk afterwards. I definitely want to schedule you to come back and finish this off, because it's been just wonderful. And Erin, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way people can connect with you?
Well, right now it's good timing. We're going to be opening registration for Brain Summit, which is free. It'll be free May 2nd through 6th. And I think next week registration will be open at brainsummit.com. I've got 20 brilliant experts who are going to be sharing for free during that week. You can register and watch everything for free.
Oh, cool.
All kinds of ways to upgrade the brain. So it's always a fun event. And that's the easiest way. And then my personal blog where you can read more about the story is just erinmatlock.com.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I will make sure I'll put all the links inside of today's video that I put together for this show and stuff like that. And then we'll talk about coming back here, and so you can share some more. But this has been just fantastic. I'm just so blessed to have had you here today. So thank you so much. And just want to put a mention tomorrow. I'm having a lady. She's coming in tomorrow. Her name is Lisa Jo Davis. She's coming and she's going to be my host tomorrow. And Lisa is she's in the whole spiritual thing as well. She's a teacher, a healer. She does this thing called like Time Heals. It's where they call on the angels and they do a sort of a healing, like to help people to believe in themselves. And I think you will relate to that. But she's going to be a great person tomorrow. So make sure if anybody wants to come in tomorrow, check out Lisa Jo Davis. But Erin, thank you so much. And do you have any closing words that you want to say before we get out of here?
Well, that brought up something really quick. If for those of you who are, really feel pulled to angel discussions like that, we have Dr. Jim Hart on Brain Summit, who runs, he's a brilliant scientist, and runs this week-long biofeedback camp in Sedona. It's very intense, but he talks at the end of our talk about measuring the frequencies of angels and halos. So for some of you might be going, whoa, that's out there. But for others of you who are like, yes, that is so me, don't miss that talk, because he was really brilliant. He talks about the science behind all of that. I thought it was very fascinating. But thank you guys for being here and spending this morning with me. I'm sorry we had a little bit of technical issues in there in the middle, but I appreciate you hanging with me.
I've seen worse. We've had worse technical issues. It happens.
Yeah.
Google Hangouts, that happens a lot. So it happens.
Yes. I love Google Hangouts, and then at times I am very frustrated, but I'm grateful for you and for the work that you do and for this beautiful energy of the group who came here today and all the wonderful, sweet comments. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you so much. And thank everybody for coming here today. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.